let's move across to the track compressor. First of all, disengaging our track EQ, so that means my noise gate and my EQ now don't figure at all, despite them being loaded into our chain. Now once more, let me recommend that you go through VTC's website, looking at the audio software in particular if you need further information about EQ or in this case compression. But just as a flavour of what you can do with compression, let me just define what it is and then I'll play around with it whilst our audio is playing through it so that you can hear the changes that I make. A quick definition of what compression is would be for me to say that any signal, i.e. your audio volume level, any signal above a certain level that you dictate, so for example maybe -3 dB, if any audio goes above -3 dB, then you might want to reduce by how much it does go above -3 dB after the audio has been recorded. So for example, at certain points in your audio, if it does go above -3 dB, maybe up to -2 or to -1 or even up to 0 dB, i.e. optimum level, any audio that does go above threshold level, then you can control by how much it actually goes up. So imagine it goes up by 2 decibels above our threshold level. Well, if you set a compression ratio, as it's known, to something fairly soft like 2:1, that means for every 2 decibels above the threshold level, for every 2 decibels above, the compressor will really now only allow it to go up by 1 decibel, i.e. a ratio of 2:1. So to reiterate, if the volume goes up by 2 dB, the compressor will allow it to only go up by 1 dB. If we have a more severe compression of say 4:1, then any audio above our threshold level that goes above by 4 dB now will be compressed in its dynamic range so that only 1 decibel of volume comes out the other end of the compressor. And really you would be using the compressor to even out the volume range, the volume dynamic range, shall we call it, of an audio file that perhaps hasn't been controlled as well as it could be. Now in actual fact this audio file of Zach singing has been recorded very well and doesn't really need that much compression applying to it, if at all any. However, just so that you get an idea of what this sounds like running through a compressor, I'm going to hit play and play around with the threshold level, the amount and the attack and release, etc, etc. Okay, here we go. I'll click play now.
White Star rocket ships fill the air with the roar of drums and the sound of I don't care. I can just imagine what's going on in there, but I cannot fathom as we dance along the air. And I believe what I can see inside of me. Inside of you.
Okay, so you saw me adjusting the threshold level, and the further to the left that my threshold level was set, that would mean that any audio above a lower level in volume, then the compressor would start applying to it. Really what you want to try and do is set your threshold level so that it only catches the loudest points, and then from there you would adjust your amount. Now I did make that fairly severe. By dragging to the right, then I'm increasing my ratio amount. As I say, a threshold of 2:1 is fairly subtle, whereas if I drag over to the right with that slider, the amount slider, then I'm compressing harder all the audio level that goes above our threshold level. So if I go right up to 5 or 6 or even 9:1, then any audio that is 9 decibels above our threshold level, well, by the time it comes out the other end of the compressor, it's not going to be 9 decibels, it's only going to be 1 decibel, i.e. we are compressing the audio level. Anyway, that's our audio track effects. Now, I will come back to this when I'm remixing the song a little bit later on, so for the moment I'm going to close this down. And in fact, despite me saying I'm going to look at using an audio editor within this tutorial, I'm going to leave that for the next tutorial so that our look here at using effects is self-contained in its own tutorial. Okay, so we will look at using an audio editor in the next tutorial. See you in a second.